Welcome to week 12 of our preaching teaching series, Unpacking Red Gone White. This week's message is called Becoming Salt, Influencers. This is Apostle David Anderson of Red Gone White Church, where transformation begins. This series is my attempt to share with you what was given to me in a rare and unusual moment with God 8 years ago. The story of this moment can be found in a link in the description portion below. In the Sermon on the Mount, which is Jesus' first and most famous sermon, he challenges us to view ourselves as salt. He's speaking metaphorically here, so allow me the next few moments to break down only some of what he's communicating to us. Matthew 5:13 says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is good for nothing but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men." As the salt of the earth, Jesus is calling us to accept a role as change agents, or what I call agents of transformation. Salt, when it touches things, tends to cause a change. When used sparingly and strategically, salt is extremely helpful and beneficial. And for the purposes of time and emphasis, I will focus on the positive effects salt can have when properly utilized. In Jesus' day, as he was declaring that we are the salt of the earth, salt had a very prominent role. Modern medicines and means did not exist, so salt was used regularly as an essential tool of life on many levels. It was used as a preservative, a seasoning, and to aid with healing. Let's look at some of these roles and consider what they mean to us today as we realize that we too are salt. As a preservative, salt has the ability to hold back decay. If you pack meat with salt, it will last longer as food before decay sets in. If you pack a corpse with salt, the body remains intact longer, allowing us to have more time to put the body to rest before it goes into its grave. What could this possibly mean about us as salt? As salt, we preserve the things of God in this world. We're holding back the effects of sin in our cultures. We are sprinkled across our neighborhoods, towns, and social groups. Our job is to affect things for God. We should stand on and stand for what we believe is right and loving and true. As salt, we are to touch the meat, otherwise known as the masses, and push against lies and corruption, and moral, ethical, financial, and social decay. Salt is probably best known as a seasoning. As a seasoning, a little goes a long way. In other words, it doesn't take much for us to have an impact. A choice word or a tender touch to the right person at the right time can change everything. If God is putting a word or an action on our hearts or minds, as salt, we need to move on that. Consider it as God's way of sprinkling salt. He's trying to use us to affect the flavor or the tone of a situation. As a seasoning, salt doesn't necessarily change, but it enhances the natural flavor. It brings out the best of the flavor of the food. Choice words, wisely delivered, can completely change the course of events and/or attitudes and reactions. Also, as salt, we can be used to draw out the best in people. Finally, as a medicinal tool, salt can be used in various ways. Salt gargled in warm water can help to heal a sore throat. Salt put on a wound can help to stop the bleeding, but also quickens the healing process. When we put salt on a wound, at first it stings and might not be welcomed, but it soon brings about comfort and healing to those who are physically afflicted. As salt, we should do the same for those who are emotionally, spiritually, even socially afflicted. Also, like salt, at first our presence, or our touch, or our engagement might not be well received. But later, people will thank us for saying what needed to be said, or doing what needed to be done to stop the bleeding. and to bring about healing and even reconciliation. On a higher level, we are called to help people reconcile with God. Often our efforts are as welcome as the sting of salt on a wound, but later are very appreciated as people find peace with God because of us. 2 Corinthians 5:19 and 20 say, God was in Christ reconciling the world to himself, not imputing their trespasses to them, and has committed to us the word of reconciliation. Verse 20, Now then, we are ambassadors for Christ, as though God were pleading through us. We implore you, on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. As ambassadors, we are being sent into our respective worlds, as little or as small as they may be, and we have been given a job to do. We are to point people to Jesus as he restores peace between them and God. Living in New England, I have noticed another thing or two about salt. Salt is put on walkways and roads. This is done in the wintertime to make movement more safe, stable, and not slippery. This is effective for the same reason as we put salt on ice when making ice cream. As a child, I distinctly remember helping a relative make ice cream from scratch. As we turned or churned the ingredients, we kept adding rock salt to the ice. Chemically, this lowers the freezing point of the ice. This allows ice to melt into a slush, but at an even colder temperature. On the roads, the result is, even though the temperature is dropping below freezing, the ice continues to melt. As salt, no matter how cold-hearted someone may seem, we can be used by God to help melt their icy heart. Salt is a versatile servant, making things better and safer. Remember, we are salt. Salt is commonplace. Every household has it, and it is used for many practical purposes. We, too, are simple, humble, and everywhere. God may choose to sprinkle or shake or scatter us into various situations to effect a positive change. Salt is like a tool that waits for its moment to be pulled out of the toolbox and used for what it was made to do. Salt is used sparingly, strategically, and smartly. A little goes a long way, so do not underestimate our effectiveness with the little we might say or do in various situations when God is orchestrating how and where and when we are being used as salt. As salt, we have our greatest impact or influence when God uses us at the right time, in the right way, to do what we were made to do. As we wrap up this topic, let's look at one more quality of salt. Salt creates thirst. Perhaps you've heard the expression, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Maybe so, but you can increase the likelihood of him drinking if you add salt to his oats. Taverns are famous for providing quote-unquote free bar snacks like salted peanuts, salted pretzels, or salted chips. Once we eat enough of these so-called free snacks, we are compelled to buy their beverages. As salt, we need to find ways to add salt to the oats that we offer when it comes to the things of God. What are people really looking for in life? Love, acceptance, forgiveness, answers to life's difficult questions, just to name a few. I want to close us by paraphrasing and summarizing a story of how Jesus salted his oats and also satisfied the thirst, or the curiosity and need, of a woman he met at a well. While Jesus was leaving Judea and heading back to Galilee, his home region, he had to pass through an area called Samaria. The people of Samaria are called Samaritans. They are considered half-breeds by the Jews and discriminated against and hated. In the book of John, chapter 4, we learn about an encounter between Jesus and a woman at high noon as they both approached a well. Most respectable women go to the well first thing in the morning. not in the heat of the day. And most respectable Jews never exchanged words with Samaritans. Jesus was not at all interested in maintaining or complying with these social mandates, imposed out of hatred, discrimination, and prejudice. He saw her not as a promiscuous and disrespected woman, but as a daughter who needed to know she was loved unconditionally. Let's look at John 4, verse 9. Then the woman of Samaria said to him, "How is it that you, being a Jew, ask a drink from me, a Samaritan woman? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans." Verse 10 goes on to say, "If you knew the gift of God, and who it is who says to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." As the conversation unfolds, we learn that she has had 5 husbands, and she's living in sin with a man she is not married to. Yet, Jesus does not condemn her or belittle her. Instead, he points to a lifestyle that worships God in spirit and in truth. As salt, we too can offer living water to those that we help to make thirsty for the things of God. Are we personally thirsty for living water? Are we personally thirsty for a relationship with a God who does not belittle or condemn us, but understands us and wants a relationship with us despite our failures or social status? We are the salt of the earth. May God use us to hold back corruption and decay, to make people, situations, and our world taste better. May He use us to heal emotional and spiritual wounds. May we be humble, accessible, effective, versatile servants for God, just like salt. Join us next week as we look at becoming impactful. This is Apostle David Anderson of Red Gone White Church, where transformation begins.